Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
All right. Fresh from his campaign to Plataea, where he and his paltry army of 2 million free Greeks confused and pacified the Persian invaders with a tactic he called aggressive loving. 16th Dan in the weirding way, 8th Dan in the Scottish art of funku. But first Dan in your heart, Decay Man.
Morning.
And then, of course, Mark and Rich. So. You know, it's getting harder and harder to find those fictional martial arts for you there, Kelly. So,
Well, keep it up. I know you got it.
I am. You have no idea how hard I'm trying to find that stuff.
There's plenty of fictional martial arts out there.
No,
there's
none
Krav
that
Maga, Hapkido.
That one that Steven Seagal does.
Yeah, whatever that is, whatever
Started
Jeff
insulting
Speakman
everyone.
was doing, that felt like interpretive dance. not-
That Brazilian one, that's sort of dance martial arts.
yeah,
Capoeira.
Capoeira, yeah.
yeah, breakdance fighting.
So we were discussing just a few moments ago before we started, when we really should have been recording, as we start to ramp up. First off, I want to say how stupid ongoing education and recertification is, how useless that is, and you know who invented it, you know who required it. Lawyers. Lawyers are the ones who did that so that they can go to court and say they've had this much training, this many hours of training in such and such, and this is why they're an expert. Little do they tell you. They never tell the jury that you were asleep through 90% of that, because you've gone through it 30 times already and know it all by heart and are about as interested. I hate that redundant, ongoing, unnecessary, ridiculously torturous, recertification and relearning of the same crap you've done again and again and again.
Now it gets better with now it's all CBTs, where you watch some dumb video or read something and take this test, and it's like, hey, it's due in 90 days. You better get on that. And I'm like, ugh. Yeah.
And you're sitting there just looking for the button that allows you to skip all the lecturing stuff. Come on, where is it? Get through this.
Yeah. And I just love the ones where they go all out and they do like a video, but you can tell it's like people in the HR department or something doing the video, and they're terrible actors.
Yeah.
Horrible.
It's awful. Yeah.
Or Rich, you went through a lot of the same training and stuff. How many hours of ongoing training did you have to do a year? Or a couple years or whatever. What was it?
Just
like
the video stuff or in classes?
No, just classes and stuff. What was it, like 64 hour or something like that?
Let me think.
I don't know. I don't know what it was for your department. So
it was at least 60 hours. At least 60 hours a year. 60 hours. Yeah. 40 in class for sure.
And it's brutal. How many times are you going to go through baton, the same friggin' class again? Nothing new ever is coming.
I don't know anything about any of that.
That's
all.
Oh, we found it. We found a new way to swing the baton. We got to show you.
It's all gibberish. Yeah. It's all gibberish. I don't know anything.
We've discovered a new place to gain compliance. Hit the meter.
No. It's all you'll talk about is feelings and making sure you don't hurt anyone else's feelings. Don't hurt your own feelings. What to do if your feelings get hurt and who to talk to. Feelings.
I thought the entire point of the baton was to hurt people's feelings.
Your feelings are not only your feelings, they're everyone else's, and everyone else's feelings are yours. Remember, Mr. Rogers taught us
the chart of ongoing escalation and how to de-escalate and all of this stuff and everything again. And
I have to say,
your ongoing education, I'm sure, sounds way more interesting than what Kelly and I have been doing for our continuing education.
You know what? No, you would think so because of the titles, but no, it's not. It's horrible.
But I mean,
it is awful.
At the end of the day, you do it, it's gone. It's not the end of the world. But
It is the worst ever because, and I can say this because as having been both student and instructor in this, there is no relief, there is no reason, there is no redeeming quality to it at all for what it does. And it's merely there, as I said, to make the jury believe that you were sitting there wrapped, intent, and going through this, this illuminating and eye-opening
See,
training to be
No,
professional.
you're approaching it from a law enforcement because you're a law enforcement instructor. Rich was a police officer. On our side, me and Kelly, has nothing to do with it. What it is if we mess up at work, right? They can go, oh, well, you were trained on this, and so HR can throw us under the bus should something go wrong. They
No
can be
different.
like, you were trained on that. I know, but
No difference.
there's no court involved. This is just so HR can
that also exists.
Yeah,
That part exists too. We get it two ways.
I will give high marks to the 1 hour training that I attended on the classification of fasteners. That was actually helpful.
Classification of fasteners.
It's awful. This is why I will tell you again. You've heard me say it before. Humanity sucks, and this is why we're doomed. Is that we do this sort of thing. I guarantee you, any alien race that ever approached this planet was turned off by so much of the crap, and this is going to be at the top of the heap for the kind of thing that just turned them right around. I told somebody at work one time. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, we were talking about this. I said it's akin. You know why they haven't come up and started talking to us yet? You know why? Because it's akin to you driving through Colorado. As you're going through Colorado, you look over and you see a colony of prairie dogs, and you go, "Oh, look, prairie dogs." You're not going to stop over there and start talking to them about microwaves and spend days showing them technology and all of this. Because they're filthy, stupid, rotten little things that have no appreciation, just vermin. And that's what the aliens look at us like.
All of the prairie dog owners in our audience, all our pet prairie dog owners are now weeping in their cereal.
Well, no, pet prairie dog owners are weeping because they have the Black Plague. Because prairie dogs still have the Black Plague. But that is what
rabies.
Aliens would look at us like. You're a spacefaring race. You have all this enlightened technology and ability and all these wondrous things. You hit Earth and you're, no. Look, prairie dogs. And you keep going. That's why they haven't been here.
All right. Well, I, for one, enjoyed the class I took on using ladders safely and effectively. That one was fun.
It's important.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you said it's not because of lawyers.
Important.
Or
Look,
the
they care about you.
Yeah.
classification of pasta. That was good.
Classification of pasta.
And, they really just care.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Press.
Now,
Yeah.
Rich, say again, all after care. They just
I
care.
really like how you
cut out.
came to their defense because you said they care. Period.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Benedict
You like that?
Arnold.
I can see
I'm a
that as,
jokester.
I can see that as a thing they put on the cover of the next training DVD.
They care.
Uh,
Right.
And-
nobody cares.
and, gentlemen, did you hear this, by the way? Controversial hot take. Did you hear Wayne LaPierre? is
Yes.
out?
Yes.
I did. I heard that. That's.
After 47 years.
I was about to say that's big news, but it's not.
No, I'll tell you that every year that was the scuttlebutt was this is the year. This is the year he's gonna be gone. This is the year. It became a refrain where you were like, no, the place is gonna be ground to dust.
Right,
and
but,
he'll be
but
there,
here's the thing.
yeah,
How long has he been there? 40-some years? Is that what you guys were
I
saying?
don't
Like,
know.
like,
Whatever.
Okay, but
Forever.
listen, and again, I don't want to get into all the details, but there's been some controversy about his
Yes.
leadership of the organization. Let's leave it at that. And I'm like, okay, he's not like being ousted. He's, I think I'm going to go retire with my golden parachute
Well,
nonsense. So
no.
like, what good has really been done? You know what I mean?
no, it's more than that. It's
The
more
rumor
than
is
that.
there's a
It's
court
not-
case pending.
Yeah, I can tell you, it ain't just him. I think now's the time I'm gonna go. I feel I've had enough.
I tell you what, that certainly is what it feels like. I've been there 40 years. I really wanted to do another 10.
Almost 50.
No, it ain't that, brother. I'm telling
Okay.
you, it ain't that. No.
I don't
But
care.
anyway, that
I don't
was,
care. I don't follow the NRA for their political takes for the most part. You know, other than they're dealing with the Constitution, they've
they
kind of
have. I will say,
crept
no,
into territory I don't think they belong.
I can tell you this: the people who work there, really good people.
I know.
You know, so
I know. I've met them. I know them just as well as you.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that those people are still there, and you know, now maybe it'll be a little bit different direction. Who knows? We'll see what
Hopefully.
happens. You know. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a big deal too. Now on to something that Kelly wanted to talk about, something near and dear to his heart.
Near and dear to my heart.
Kelly had a few ideas. One of the things he wanted to talk about, and one of the biggest things that's been concerning Kelly of late, is friendship.
I just don't think this is. I don't like the characterization.
I know it's unfair.
It's a lot of buildup.
Yeah, there it is. It's laid
There
out
it is.
bare for the world.
Kelly's
to see.
concerned about friendship, huh?
He is.
Kelly, what are your main concerns?
Well, actually, I
regarding
think it was Sean
in
that
this
brought
modern
this up.
era?
I think Sean brought this up post.
No, I have it here in an
previous
email actually from Kelly about topics to talk about.
Right, I was regurgitating something you had said. Yeah, there's been scuttlebutt in the news of this idea that men have a friendship problem. That you know, the impacts of friendship on the quality of one's life, and that men have problems making lasting friendships after a particular point.
Mm. Do you agree with that?
I think it depends on the demographic you're speaking about, and I think it also largely depends on the person you're speaking about, because I think it's too easy to paint with broad brushstrokes that incorrectly categorize somebody.
So let's say you painted with the biggest, broadest brush you possibly could.
A roller, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah. And let's say that with that brush, you were saying, this is definitively how I feel about everyone with no exception. Would you agree?
With myself? No.
Remember, this is on the record, by the way.
I think if I painted with the broadest brushstroke that I could paint with, would I agree with my conclusion? Yes, because the brushstroke would say we got problems.
What do you think? Now, I want to ask you, do you think honestly, seriously, do you think honestly that it's really that much different from when we were younger?
Yes, I do. I think we fall into it. I think we're outliers, right?
Well,
Because
not just for us. I mean, for society as a whole. Do you think it's really different?
I think the problems are kind of the same. I think how we're looking at them might be different, right? I listened to and this happened a couple of years ago. I was watching a documentary, and they showed a speech at one of the political conventions, and I think it was from the late 60s, early 70s, right? And everything mentioned at that convention could easily be plugged into today, right? And be very much on point. So I think the problems largely, decade over decade, remain pretty much the same. I think that the problems remain stable. I think the way humanity looks at them is very, very different.
In a better way, or do you think it's?
I would be hard pressed to say that there's much today that's necessarily better. I don't know how you quantify better versus worse. You know, it's different. I'll say that. There are some things that get better, and then there are other things that sort of degrade over time. Yes.
I have some thoughts. So
Go for
we're
it.
talking about friendship.
So,
right?
Rich, what do you think about?
Okay, first of all, Rich, try and put it on mute when you're typing. And secondly, every time you put your coffee down, it's like thunk. So be a little gentle. We're recording. But like in all seriousness, friendship. And Kelly alluded to this. I have known Sean and Kelly literally as long as I can remember. Right? We are that old of friends, like pre-kindergarten. Same thing with my friend Paul, who I'm gonna see in a couple of weeks. So, and we have remained friends through elementary and juniors and high school and our lives, even if we haven't been physically close to each other we've remained friends. And I think that's kind of what started this. Is there's a lot of people who are not friends with someone that they knew as a child anymore. They kind of get out and they go to college and they make new friends and they kind of move on, or then they move to a new place and their old friends are their old friends, or not. They're just like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to go make some new friends. And so I do think we are the outlier there. But I also think, going to what you were saying there, it's so much easier to maintain a friendship across a distance now because of the tools we have. Like we can get on a podcast in Saturday morning, and Kelly is on the west coast of the United States and three of us are on the east coast, and he gets up really early in the morning so that we can do this.
That's
right. I get online, I play D&D with my friends on Thursday night, and spread all over the United States. And at one point, one guy was deployed to Djibouti, and he'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to play D&D with us.
That's an interesting point, Mark. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that we're the beneficiaries of a very unique situation then? Do you think we would have maintained our friendship the way that we have if we weren't like straddling two generations that way? So we had a very specific situation, unique situation when we were brought up, that we almost, what it felt like? It felt like we went through the trenches together and developed a bond and a friendship kind of because of that. But then do you think it stayed that way because we were fortunate enough to have kind of dovetailed into a generation that has these tools? Or do you think we would have maintained that anyway?
I think we would have maintained it. I really do. But like I made a joke last time where I was like, hey, if you want to have like lifelong friends, I made some kind of joke to the effect of, we're friends because my dad got a job at a certain place, lived in a certain neighborhood, and went to the same school. And I was just like a different job, and I'd gone to a different school, and we may never have met or whatever. And I was kind of making that joke of like, to get lifelong friends, just make sure your parents like move into the same neighborhood, and then you're going to hang out with the kids your age. And you said something to the effect of, no, I've been to school with lots of people and I'm not friends with those people. I'm still friends with you guys. And I was like, that does make sense, because there's lots of people I've been friends with through, say, high school or, in college or whatever. And we don't have that same level of closeness that our group of friends does currently. You know what I mean? So I can't put my finger on why that is. Because it's not like, oh, I don't like this person or I wouldn't hang out with them or whatever. But as far as maintaining it, I also, kind of the flip side of it is I have people that I'm friends with that I've never met because we're online. You know what I mean? Like, and I know other people, that's not a big deal nowadays. But like, I literally have a couple people that I'm like, I consider them friends, have never met them in person. Might not, you know what I mean? Just based on where people live and kind of what's going on. So let's bring Sean back in here. Not sure if that answers your question, but that's where I'm at.
So do you
that's all
think
I have to say about that.
So then the ability of our friendship to endure, to have started and endured, would you attribute that then really more to the uniqueness of how it started then? And when I say started, I'm talking about the first, I don't know, 10 years or whatever it would have been, something like that, long enough to form the bond of that friendship. Do you think maybe that's what allowed for it to be what it is then?
No. I think it was more the. Well, here's what it is. Like, we were friends in elementary school, very young, like knew each other. We weren't great friends then. In fact, you were a bit of a jerk in junior high school.
Was
you were, but I'm saying is in junior high we were not as close. So that's when we started to become, I think, much closer friends.
I thought I thought we were very close friends.
Secrets will be revealed. Old hurts uncovered.
No, but like I think, like you were saying, kind of going through that junior high school is when they really solidified. Because there's a lot of people that I was friends with then that I'm not necessarily close with now. You know what I'm saying? So it was, I think, the kind of it's like, I'm going to use another example, like military brats, right? You know, they're like, I moved all over the country, and I'm like, where did you go to high school? Because that's where you're from. That's where you're making your core friendships, and that's where you're becoming like who you're going to be as a person. Is
Right.
you're maturing and kind of doing that. And so I always kind of looked at that as kind of, that's the era where we became really close friends, is when we were old enough to make decisions. Who do I want to hang around with, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the reason the friendship continues today, I mean, because of distance and things. I mean, you guys are closer together. It's easier to get together, but I'm all the way over here. And I think the reason this continues today is because of those early investments. I think that's the thing that builds a friendship, right? It's you've made investments, you've built bonds of trust. You know, you've been through the shit together, and here you are. Um, you know, again, I've known people over the years, gotten, you know, close relationships with people over the years that I'm not connected to now. You know, it's again, it's of time, and it's going through the crucible, really, that tests the friendship at the end of the day. But I think that's where this is the outlier. Uh, I think the crux of the issue of do men have a friendship issue is the idea of how many of you added, right? Do you add friendships to the thing? Do you stay connected with people? And I think I don't know, I'll speak for myself. The pressures of everyday life a lot of times get in the way of that, right? I mean, because you're trying to push ahead, you're trying to maintain a certain earning level so that you can stay alive. You know, the pressures of everyday life of things that you got to do, and then you don't have a lot of time for um, you know, their downtime and any sort of building a relationship with anybody kind of thing. I mean, I maintain with you guys because you know, this is the core friendship for many decades.
And you don't have to do anything to foster that, right? It's already there. It's a thing. You don't have to do anything, or you know, meet some kind of test or level or go out and acquire. Whereas I'm thinking about it, like, how many friends have I added in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I work with some people that I really like and they're cool. We haven't done anything outside of work. You know what I mean? And that to me is what kind of defines a friendship. You work with a lot of people, but do you guys hang out outside of work? Right? I'm friendly with a lot of people that I work with, and some of them I really like, and I hang out yet. So it comes to one of those things, like, I have my friends, I have my family, I have the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
How much effort do I want to put into expanding that circle? There's some guys I go to church with that were pretty cool, and I'm like, oh, maybe we'll do some stuff with them, and you know, that we've gone over to their house for like game night or whatever, and I'm like, oh, now I'm kind of friendly with them. But are we friends? Have we done anything outside of work? Do I think, hey, I want to hang out with somebody? Do I call them? You know, so I do understand, as a older male taking care of my family and my life or whatever, I'm not prioritizing expanding my friends, because you know what I mean, and I'm content with it, you know. But I know that's the outlier. I've had friends for 50 years or whatever that are still my friends, and it's not just one, it's 3, 4, 5, you know, like there's a solid group of people that I'm already friends with. So personally, I can see me being like, I'm not interested in adding more to the circle.
No, and I think within that, I think it's important to define friendship, and also what, you know, I don't think there's a friendship quota. I don't think somebody, you know, you need to have 7 friends. You know, no, I think you need to have quality friendships, and that's what this is. There's many acquaintances, but do men have friendship issues? I don't know. I don't know how much I believe in that necessarily. I mean, maybe, but not necessarily in my case.
What about you, Rich? What do you think? What we weren't friends in elementary school or anything, but we couldn't be because we didn't meet until Games Workshop, right? So as someone who at a different point in life met up with the group, if you will, was it difficult, I guess, from that perspective, from that time or point in life, as opposed to having grown up together where you can develop something and, you know, that sort of thing? From starting there, was it difficult developing the friendship? Was it difficult becoming friends or something? Did you find that, or did you find it easier, do you think, to both, develop that and then maintain that?
It's an interesting question because I still carry a bag of rocks around with. I was a bit mean to you, and I still carry a bag of rocks around.
You died out there, brother. Try that again. Say
Okay,
again,
yeah,
everything
so,
after bag of rocks.
Yeah, you died out there. Start that over.
So the first time I met you, Sean, I was unkind to you, and I didn't realize it at the time because I was a dick. But
It was.
I still carry a bag of rocks with me.
Hang on a minute.
I think
What's that, Kelly?
that.
No, I said, Rich, I couldn't hear him for a second.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, I got the bit of you felt guilty because you were kind of a butthead to Sean.
Yes.
And you still carry that around, and a bag of rocks is a symbol of shame, I imagine.
Yeah, it's just something that sticks with you.
Yeah.
that explains what.
This entire exchange has been garbled.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I feel like it was a little too important to just be like, let's rush over that. I couldn't hear half of what everybody was saying. And I think that what I'm hearing is what's going to turn out in the recording.
Okay.
So I would like to go back to Rich starting his story over again
Yeah.
before we start commenting on it, because we didn't get a good copy of that.
Okay,
Yep.
that's fine. I'm looking at your little thing that you guys
Yeah.
look at for me, and yours is the
Yeah.
one going up and down, Mark. Your little meter. So I'll start over. So I think that how I viewed friendships, and I'll get back to the thing we were talking about before. How I viewed friendships at that time of my life, where it was now at this point almost 30 years ago, is different from how I view them now, having matured over the course of 30 years. And part of that is interacting with you guys and seeing how you guys establish and deal with your friendships. I do have a number of friends that I've maintained throughout the vast majority of my life, but it's a handful. There's 3 or 4 that I've known for 30 plus years that I still talk to on a regular basis. Much like you, Kelly, I think there's vast number of acquaintances, right? But I don't consider them friends. And like when I first met Sean, I was a dick to him accidentally. I honestly didn't mean it that way. But at the same time, it's like a bag of rocks that I carry around with me. I say, well, that was now in retrospect, and being friends with all of you and specifically him and knowing him as a person, I wish that hadn't have happened. But at the same time, I can't take it back. So, but it does plague me a little bit in the back of my mind.
If it helps any, apparently I was a jerk to Mark in junior high.
Apparently,
And
yes.
I don't carry any bag of rocks or
No,
anything
you
about that.
you weren't a jerk to me.
We didn't
You were a
realize it.
jerk. Period.
In any case. But that being said, I just wanted to throw that in there as a side note. That being said, my understanding of friendship and relationships in general has matured over the years. Part of that in dealing with you guys who have this long-term friendship amongst each other, that shapes it affects not only how I deal with you guys, but how I deal with other people, because I think it's a admirable and worthy thing to have. I think that the idea, I kind of look at it as like alliances. And this isn't to take anything away from friendships, but I mean, it's a give and take situation. And if both sides aren't receiving a sufficient amount from the relationship, that relationship withers on the vine. And depending upon the type of person you are, you can make a show of it and say, oh yeah, we're friends, play act it, but it's not true. I don't like that personally. I'd rather just let that particular alliance go and move on to, concentrate on the ones that actually are maintained. I as an anecdote, I did have a very, very good friend that I no longer talk to because it was a one-way relationship. It was just me constantly going to them, trying to connect with them, not giving them anything, but just the connection was only one way. They never called me. They never bothered to interact with me. It was only on their convenience. They never checked up on me, and things like that made me understand is like, oh, it's parasitic as opposed to complementary, right? I felt like the host, and I was being drained, and only when it was useful to them was I accessed, and I felt that contributed to the death of our friendship. And when it didn't, when I started to let it go, and just didn't bother with it, it was never addressed. And then we had one interaction in particular where we encountered each other, and he tried to make it like it was always there, and I just wasn't. I wasn't dishonest enough to play along. I just said, nah, we're not like that anymore. Like, he tried to crack a joke or something that was, had we been friends, I would have taken in good humor, kind of like we do with each other.
Mm-hmm.
With him, I was like, nah, don't talk to me like that. I've been broken. So it's I don't think men have a friendship problem in general, but I think there's a dishonesty problem amongst the relationships, that people play act the relationships a bit. Well, not a bit, way more than they should for appearances. I'm not that kind of person. I don't like to maintain appearances. I'd rather just present myself as I am. All my flaws up on the wall.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Do you think perhaps this is one of the things I was thinking about with this? Do you think perhaps that it's more difficult to do that sort of thing nowadays because you're less able? And this is just postulating, of course, because of course we went through the life we had the way we did, so we can never know what theirs is. I'm just guessing at what it might be, but that it's so much harder for people to be friends in general, I think, because the world is so much more judgmental. So if you're not living a specific way and someone else believes that you should be living, that there's this constant contentious bone between them that will flare up at some point because the world is focused so much on those.
I think.
Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm describing.
It makes sense to me. I think the judgment's always been there. The world today is just faster in passing that judgment than it's been. I mean, look, I know I can be very judgmental about a lot of things, and trust me, I'll pass judgment on something within seconds of seeing it. I think in today's world, it's just faster to disseminate that out to the masses than
correct.
It is.
Yeah, right. I agree, and that's what I'm saying is that it's not that it hasn't always been there. You're right. It just seems to me to agree with what I think you were saying there, and this is the point I'm making, is that in this world today, it's so much harder to not have that as a focus, because everyone's got talking points and hot button topics, and
you hate the same things I hate. And the thing is with the four of us here, I mean, look, I've had differences of opinion with everybody here one time or another, right? And we've gotten heated debates about a thing, but the friendship never wavered because of those heated debates, because the friendship is separate from the thing that we are divided on. And that's the thing. I know a lot of folks who the friendship is very much dependent on the fact of whether or not you believe the things I believe. And
right. And I personally think that is a weak friendship.
Yeah.
Right. I've never decided to not be friends with somebody or be friends with somebody based on whether they, went to my church or agreed with me politically, or, I like guns, they don't like guns, whatever, whatever it is that is a very divisive thing nowadays. I'm like, look, man, if I lived your life and I grew up, in the heart of, say, Boston, because I lived there for a few years. Well, guess what? There's a lot of liberal people in Boston. So if I move to Boston and go, I'm not going to be friends with anybody that doesn't agree with me politically, I'm not sure I'm going to have a lot of friends in Boston. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I've never taken that approach, because I don't even agree with my own political stances from a couple of years ago, right? Because we all grow and we all change, right? So, so I personally have never been like, oh, I used to be a firearms instructor. I like guns. I own guns. And there's people who are like, oh, I would never. Am I going to arbitrarily decide I'll never be friends with this person? Or, I think the judgment, the part of what makes a good friend is them suspending judgment because you're friends, right? It's the outside world that wants to judge everything and be like, oh, I'm not going to hang out with this person because of their religion, or they don't practice their religion the way I think they should, or blah, blah, whatever those reasons are for that judgment. With friends, you're already inside the circle. You know what I mean? If we started judging each other, oh my gosh, I appreciate that. I will allow you to share that.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, we, as longtime friends, we've seen each other at our best and our worst.
Yeah.
So if we start getting judgmental, it could be like, Kelly, remember that time in third grade when you did this? I mean, come on. Where does that end? There's nothing good that would ever come of that. And so that's one of those things I define as part of the friendship is we're kind of inside that circle. I don't hold every dumb thing I've ever seen any of us do or say against us, or look at the current day in the light of who we were.
And that's
past, I guess.
And that's that crucible that forges the friendship ultimately at the end of the day, right? So, Rich, you were going to say a thought.
Yeah.
That I didn't just interrupt you. I just said I have a thought and then allowed you to continue. So I'm learning. But in any case, I don't think I think the judgmental part of it has maintained. People have always been as judgmental as they are now. I think what the issue is now is that in this world of supposed tolerance and diversity and inclusion, there's a massive amount of intolerance for opinion. You can't have a difference of opinion with somebody and still like them. You have to hate them if they don't agree with you. You can't be friends with somebody who's on the opposite end of a spectrum with you. Now, I would say that there are certain viewpoints that prevent me from interacting with a person, and those are fairly obvious viewpoints where we're talking about, people's liberty or freedom or ability to live their lifestyle. But I mean, you can have a difference of viewpoint based upon, as Sean was talking about, based on your upbringing or your life experience, that shapes your attitudes. And there's now you just say that person is bad or that person is wrong without even engaging them to find out, okay, well, let's talk about this. There's in a world of vast communication, there seems to be less willingness to communicate than ever before. It's been brought about by things like Facebook, where people can just flip off a glib comment or troll somebody without even wanting to engage with them in any manner. Right. I've tried this with people I've disagreed with.
What's that?
I said in the nerd world.
Mm-hmm.
See the meter now. I'm looking at it. In the nerd world, I've engaged with people regarding the idea of the female space marine, and heated debate, and all of these suppositions about me and how I think and what I believe and what I feel, and not only my opinion on little toy soldiers, but my opinion about people and the world and how things are. We're all called into question, and I was vilified in various ways, and I didn't take any of that seriously, but I noticed it to see that people don't connect themselves with, they're disconnected in a way. They're more connected than ever, and they're more disconnected than ever because they have access to so many more people than they ever have. And instead of taking advantage of that connection, they're using it as a weapon.
Well, this, you know, you bring up an interesting point. And this is something that let me ask you guys then. Do you think in a way that obviously there's like a curse to being able to interact the way that we do predominantly now, which is impersonal typing, you know, not face-to-face kind of thing, which does change the dynamic for so many people. As soon as they don't have to worry about immediate repercussion or any of that, then they become much more intolerant and so forth. However, on the other side, is it a blessing then that you get to see the worst of the people in this form, because now you know this is stuff that would have been hidden? You'd be, you know, you'd be listening to them 5 years from now, and they'd be, you know, letting you know they thought you were, you know, misogynistic or whatever, and you were going through all this time that had no idea that they were thinking.
I was
that
a jerk in junior high. What?
Well, there you go. There you
Oh,
go.
you're never gonna let that one go.
But do you think it's a blessing, more of a blessing, or more of a curse to have that? I don't want to call it honesty, because that's giving too much credit. It's not like they're standing there in front of you being honest. They're doing it from the safety of, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure if I would call it honesty, but is it more of a blessing or more of a curse that this window is open to the truth, if you will, of what they're thinking?
I'd say it's an unwanted advantage. It's something that you get because of the bad thing that's happening. You get that as a consequence, just a natural consequence of the circumstance. Is
it more of a good or more of a bad, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, would you be better off not having a more direct connection with these people and being more tolerant, or are you just is it a feedback mechanism of the way that the communication is happening? Is it a feedback mechanism that you now have this exposure of, like, they're being shaped to be a certain way because of the way that the communication is happening? That they may not be that way had that communication not been there. And I'd say it's a zero-sum game, in my opinion.
I would say there's no winners in it, so I would find it hard to say that it's a net positive in any way. I think the free use of vitriolic language that people engage in quite often, and I'm guilty of it too myself over the years, I think does more harm than good ultimately at the end of the day. Yeah.
As someone who has never gone to vitriolic language or ever done that sort of thing in my life, I can't understand that. But
since junior high,
since my
look close, you can see his angelic halo over his head, shining like the Emperor's own light.
Words have staying power, you know, and they have a staying power in a very unique way. You know, you can get in a fight with somebody, physical altercation with somebody, and those wounds eventually fade, but words have a way of sticking around for a very, very long time.
So now I will say I'm of two minds about the whole thing. On the one hand, they weren't friends, but they were like Facebook friends and people I've met in real life, and we became friends on Facebook, and over the years I've seen them make some almost not horrible comments, maybe in and of themselves, but the thought process behind some of those comments, I wholeheartedly disagree with. You know what I mean? Without getting into some details, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person thinks this way. Like I've met them and they seem like a nice person. We're Facebook friends, and then call it politics, call it whatever, and they're talking about something. So on the one hand, I think very few people on the internet have original thoughts. I think there's a whole lot of copy paste. I heard somebody that I like say this, and so on the one hand, I take it all with a grain of salt, because a lot of these people aren't forming original thoughts. They're just parroting what they've seen elsewhere, whether they took the time to type it out in their own words or just shared a meme or shared a funny thing or a quote or whatever. There's a lot of that on social media. So everything someone's ever posted, I don't look at and go, I'm going to judge their entire life, or because I've looked at, Facebook and be like, hey, here's the thing you posted 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I go, ooh, can't believe I said that. That's stupid. Why would I share that? Yeah, I don't agree with what I did in the past. So I want to give that same level of grace to other people. But on the free speech side, right, this is where I'm all about, like, free speech. Everyone's like, oh, we can't have, bad speech, hate speech, whatever. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We should have that, because I want to know who those people are. Let them hang themselves with their words. And so this applies on a personal level as well as a policy level. On the whole, I think I'd rather know who people are.
Okay.
In the same way that I think you guys know who I am. I'm not putting on a front when we have our personal interactions that are not being recorded or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you guys know who I am and who I'm not, I think. And if I was, secretly some other way when you guys weren't looking, I mean, how long can you keep up that kind of facade with your close friends?
I want you to know.
You can do it with the world.
I restrained myself from making a lot of jokes during that little bit right there.
Okay.
Because I respect you, and I wanted to hear, because that was an important part of your speech there. So,
Thank
but
you.
I'll let you fill in all the jokes in your own mind at your.
Oh, I have. So. Believe me, I have. So yeah. So it goes both ways. I could see a benefit to it, because you want to know who people really are.
Yeah.
And what they say is a window into who they really are.
See, I think I fall more on that side, but I do lament the fact that the courtesy, the ability to, the respect, I suppose, of at least listening to someone or hearing them out is lost more, especially now, because
that's why I say it's zero
personal interaction. So and I don't know, but I think I fall more on, like, Mark's side of it.
And while I can see the point Mark's making, and I can't disagree with that, I will say that even in that idea that you see who somebody is, I'm not entirely sure that's 100% true all the time. I think you see who somebody thinks they're trying to be.
Well, let me clarify that. Let me clarify one bit with that. Not so much about what they're talking about, but how their thought process works.
Sure.
For thinking about whatever it is. So not so much the topic, but how they go about interacting. Because, like we were saying, we can disagree about all kinds of things, things of importance, things that would seem to be passing, fancies, if you will, for a turn of a phrase that's pretty stupid. But that's all right. I've got, a guy at NRA that I worked with who was of a different religion and all that. And the two religions you would think would be not mixing very well and, going at each other and stuff. But no, not at all. We had wonderful conversations, wonderful, appreciation for each other, and, really, really nice.
Conan and Subutai. It's Conan and Subutai sitting by the fire eating.
I guess
eating chicken.
But it was really, really nice, and I really enjoyed that, and I really like him, and I really hope he's doing well and all of that, because of how he thought, how his process, not what he thought, but how he thought. If that makes sense.
It does.
So that's just to clarify, Kelly. That's what I meant. Not so much what they believe, but how they go about the process, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a window into time, right? Because I always leave open the idea that somebody's capable of change. Now, and when you say something like that, I think a lot of people want to bring up, what would be extreme examples of where that's just not true. But I think the majority of people are subject to change. Like Mark talked about, there's things he believed, even a couple of years ago, where his thoughts have altered over time. And so I think you have to leave that window open, but it's certainly an indicator of whether or not I'm going to let you into my circle or not.
So do you think that would be the big, and you know what, in that light, I don't know if you can really, just limit it to men, but people in general, that friendship overall.
Yeah. That's an everybody thing. And I think in today's world where people externalize a lot of the qualifications for what becomes a friend, right? Is okay, are we all boycotting the same thing? Do we all take sides on the same thing? You know, do you fall outside the standardized checklist of what it means to be, you know, on the right side of the world at the, you know, whatever the minute is? I think it becomes problematic. I think people really need to stop and take a stock of themselves. You know, what does friendship mean to you ultimately at the end of the day? And really look at that. Examine yourself first before you start examining
You know,
everybody.
that's an interesting point too, Kelly. And I was thinking about that earlier today in regards to this, as a matter of fact. It seems to me that there's a lot more of, and maybe it's not, maybe it's just more readily apparent because it's not hidden underneath the airs, if you will. But there seems to be a lot more, well, why should I have to? You
Yeah.
know, why should I have, when you say to someone, well, you should be more forgiving, more, have more forbearance, have more understanding, empathy, whatever you want, when you should give something to the relationship. It seems like I hear a lot from people, just as, and not in direct discussion, just hearing them talking. There seems to be a lot of, well, why should I have to? They should make the effort, you know? And because of that, it just seems like, well, that's a non starter.
And
Okay.
they're thinking the same thing. So they both cancel each other out.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense then to you? That
Yeah.
seems to be, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'll say, and I want to add this because it's been a thought rolling around in my head since we started this discussion. You know, there was a me 5 years ago that's different than the me today, and that really hinges on that point where I faced my own mortality in a very direct way. And I have to say, there's so many things that were important in my life 5 years ago that have simply dropped off the radar screen as an importance, and the priority really became all the relationships that I have, right? And that's the thing. I mean, all the things that you think are a priority, I go back to like a Stephen Covey thing, you know, begin with the end in mind. And in that thought that Stephen Covey had was think about the end of your life. How do you want to be remembered? Like nobody's going to give a crap that you attended a meeting, that you took a phone call, that you went on another business trip. People are always going to remember how you treat them. And that's the thing at the end of the day. So I just think do men have a friendship problem? I think the world has a friendship problem, right? And I think it's how we treat each other. And I think that we all need to stop and take a look at that. You know, what is a friend to you? Not what does the internet say, not what does Instagram say, but what is a friendship to you?
And
What is humanity's worth to you?
you know
And then
what's
invest in
sad?
that.
You know what's sad is a lot of people would listen to what you said and would come back with something like, "Oh, that's such a trope," you know, "That's so
Sure.
trite that he's saying," you know, and that. But you know what? You know what's a trope is them reacting to it that way. To
Yeah,
be
no,
honest with you, you know, that right there is,
yeah.
in all honesty, you can't argue with it. That is wisdom.
No,
Look,
I mean,
I would say this. Pardon me, Rich, for cutting you off,
that's okay,
but
buddy.
I would say this. If you think that what I'm saying is a trope, if you think it's me being naive, check in, understand my life, walk in my shoes, and
Mhm.
then tell me it's naive and a trope.
Well, it's true unless you've been through something, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Unless you've been through something like that, you can't. How can you possibly sit there and say, "Well, no, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just being, you know what I'm."
yeah.
They can't just dismiss it with logic, so they just dismiss it with nonsense and hide behind that because they haven't had that experience. They haven't been there, you know, and done that. And you're absolutely right. It's one of those things like having a child or, you know, those life defining moments that you may have an inkling to before you've been there, but you truly don't have an insight until you have. And you're very right. You're very right. And it's one of those things you look back on and you're grateful in a way that you are where you are now, as frightening as it is, you know, but how do you get that across? How do you do that? You know, how do you relay the importance of that kind of thing? I don't know. I don't
I don't
know.
know.
And I wish they would listen to you a good bit more with that because that's wisdom.
I just I don't know, I think as you age, right, you become sort of the itinerant gardener.
You hope
You're just
so
yeah,
anyway.
you're just planting seeds, tending to things, and hoping it comes to fruition.
But I have seen a number of people who sadly have not, as they've gotten older, have kind of doubled down
Yeah,
or, settled in, dug into their ways, and that's it. And to me, I think that's probably the greatest tragedy is not being able to look at it and at a moment's notice be willing to change course. I think to me that is the note of a or that is the marker of a truly great human being, and why I would want to be a friend with someone is when they're willing to do that sort of thing. They're willing to, at a moment's notice, make
right.
themselves better, drop what they thought for what they found to be true, rather than simply hiding away from it and saying, no, it doesn't exist,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I
I
agree.
got in a discussion recently with a couple of folks who, by all accounts, should be on diametrically opposed sides of a very global issue, and we got in this discussion about the idea that the things that bind us are more plentiful and stronger than the things that we think divide us, but we happen to only focus on the latter, you know. And I think that's an important aspect also of friendship. And I think that's the thing ultimately within this group, that's the thing that wins out ultimately at the end of the day. Because like I say, I've had heated disagreements with each of you at one time or another about something. Um, and those disagreements don't matter to the friendship. They're not, I mean, at least in my perspective, they don't matter. I mean, surely if I said something hurtful, I should apologize. I don't think I did because I think I spoke rightly. But it's the idea that the friendship endures. The friendship
Yeah, no, I
endures.
100% agree with that. Like there's nothing you guys are going to say on this podcast because we like to give each other a hard time, or like in person we tend, like as men, we tend to like, rib each other as a form of bonding, and if you're looking to take that the wrong way, it could be really easy to destroy something, but I think the friendship is stronger
Yeah,
than all of that. I'm not going to get into an argument with somebody, one of you guys, about politics, and they're like, oh, throw up my arms and storm. I'm never going to talk to those guys again. But I've had acquaintances do that. I make a,
yeah,
a
Yeah.
strong statement and be like, listen, if you do this, I think you're a jerk. And I'm talking like a Facebook post. Hey, listen, don't do this. I don't like it when people do this. And one of the guys who was guilty of doing that thing was like, oh, and I've never spoken to him again.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, I wasn't trying to lose a friend over my post, but I was letting people know in no uncertain terms, hey man, I'm not going to give in to your emotional blackmail.
Yeah.
And usually it's something to the effect of, oh, here's this topic, and if you disagree with me, I'm going to unfriend you. Right? Have you ever heard that kind of thing? And
oh yeah,
I will hit people with the hammer. I was like, you don't get to post your thing on social media and blackmail me emotionally into not sharing your opinion, or you're going to unfriend me. F off. I'm not playing that game. You know what I'm
It
saying?
seems like an electronic extension of high school when that
Yeah.
sort of thing happens,
Mhm.
And I'm going to assert my dominance based on simply my dominance in the
Yeah.
social
And if you
structure.
disagree, well, then, I'm going to, okay,
Yeah.
bye. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? You guys would never say that to
Yeah.
us. But on social media, people can say that. Like would you imagine rolling into your group of friends in high school and there's 6 of you sitting at the lunch table and somebody goes, wow, if you have a different opinion on whatever than I do, then you're not allowed to sit at this table anymore. How dumb would that be? But online, people think it's cool.
Yeah.
Now, alternately, I was thinking, since this is the Speak Nerd and Enter podcast, I will say one of the reasons I think we have such a strong friendship is all the gaming we've done together, right? Role
yeah,
playing is a
yeah,
I call it an intimate experience, right? You're sitting around a table, you're pretending to, be these adventurers and go do things, and but that's not the kind of thing I want to do with strangers, right? I don't
Right.
want to go to a convention and pretend to be an elf ranger in front of some guy I've never met and probably will never meet again. And I've done that, like a Gen Con or whatever. That's not, I mean, that's fun, but it's not, hey man, I'm getting together for game night with the guys. I've literally driven down from Boston to spend Saturday night gaming with my friends in Maryland. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go spend the weekend because the gang's getting together and we're going to do our games. And same thing with, rolling dice over Warhammer. That was our high school, pastime as much as role playing was playing the war games and stuff. And I remember, playing BattleTech back in the day. And I think that those hobbies really can foster long-term and lasting friendships because you get to know the people that you're playing them with. And I think that is, I can't quantify what that factor is, but I think it is a factor in the longevity of our friendship.
You know what I think it is? We were talking about method of thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much the outcome, but the method for getting there. So I think in that situation, it really allows for that to be abundantly clear as to what it is. Because in a fantasy role play situation, you have the freedom to be able to do that sort of thing in a very honest way. And I have never done that with anybody who's a stranger because I could never be myself. I just can't. I would never feel comfortable doing that. I can't. With you guys, I don't have any problems doing that because I feel like I can be. You guys know who I am. You know what's going to happen. We're going to go up and down the coast, selling transmuted gold to buy a supervillain out, hideout kind of thing. You know what ridiculousness is coming and that kind of stuff. But I can be me. I don't have to feel the pressure of trying to be something that I'm not to make everybody else feel comfortable. I can just relax and be me. And I think that's what makes a truly great friendship, at least for me anyway. Is that kind of thing.
Yeah, that level of vulnerability though comes from mutual investment of both sides. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to do.
That's what I was talking about. That's that parasitic relationship where you're just all give and no get.
Yeah. 100%, Rich. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, boys. Well, thank you. That was an excellent discussion, at least in my opinion. That was an excellent discussion. I appreciate that a lot. And hopefully 1,000 years from now, this will be dug up somewhere and change whatever world the bugs have created at that point.
We have changed the very face of friendship.
Alien visitations are about to begin.
Our alien overlords at that point. That's right. So, all right, boys. Well, thank you very much. And Kelly will hit one of those other topics on the next one there.
Yeah,
all right.
That's good.
All right, boys.
All right. Bye.
Peace out.
Bye.
Love you.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.